Hi, everyone, and welcome to CROs React Episode 2. This month, we are looking at web forms. I'm Joe, Head of Conversion at Launch.
Hiya, I'm Amy. I'm a Senior Conversion Executive at Launch.
And I'm Josh, and I'm a Senior Paid Media Manager.
And today, we're looking at 3 different websites and answering the question, if I could experiment with one thing on this page, what would it be? So let's get started. So our first website is Tesco Car Insurance. So this one is yours, I believe, Josh.
Yeah. So this one I thought was a really interesting layout of a form that I've not really come across that often before. So I thought it'd be good to run through and sort of see what we'd want to test with it, because like I said, it's not really sort of conventional layout that we tend to see.
Yeah.
So
I'll just click on through. All right, here we go. This is it.
So yeah, so to start with, obviously it's just pretty much reading through and then kind of what you'd expect. But the whole form is essentially broken down into this kind of slideshow style presentation where you've got one piece of information per slide, essentially.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, again, it's not one you come across a lot. I mean, at this stage here, like if you do say, I think there's an option there for something that doesn't look right. If you click that at this point, it just takes you out of the form completely.
Right.
It sort of says you won't be able to get a quote. Yeah, you can kind of just at this point keep following through. There's not much for the user to do. But the main thing with it that I found difficult or would definitely want to test with it, you've got absolutely no concept of where you are in the journey with it. Like if I'm sat down with half an hour to spare to fill out and try and get a car insurance quote, I've got no idea if this is going to take me 5 minutes or if it's going to take me an hour.
Yeah. No progress bar.
Yeah, a progress bar is exactly what I'd be chucking in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty fair shout. I think if I was to do one thing or test one thing, it's kind of a variation on your suggestion, actually, to be honest. It probably would be to chunk this out into sections, or essentially, so you're filling in your details section, your car details section. I think that would be a useful way of giving users an understanding of how far, or at least what section they're in when they're progressing through it.
Yeah, I think that all makes a lot of sense. And I think my suggestion isn't too far. But, toying around maybe with the idea of having some kind of save and continue later kind of option within the form once you start going, especially with, I can imagine a form like this could be quite lengthy and it could ask for quite a lot of information that users might not necessarily have to hand from the beginning. Potentially if they could go through and kind of, because there's nothing worse than getting halfway through a form and then realizing that you don't actually have the info and then having to go by and kind of restart it later. So, something like that could really save a lot of effort, essentially. Insurance
forms are similar to mortgage applications, one of life's sort of necessary evils, isn't it? It's like it's not something you're necessarily doing for fun. So you want it to be as easy and seamless as possible. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, and also, like you said, it's something you'd want to put a little bit of time aside to do. So it'd be nice to know how long. I mean, you might say, right, I've got half an hour this evening or an hour, or whatever. I'm going to do it. So it'd be nice to know that you can do it in that time.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's some nice test ideas there. We are going to move on to our second website now, which I will share. Stop the screen. So website number 2 is The Ordinary. This is Amy's.
This is my one. See, this, unlike insurance, is forms that I fill out for fun. I love stuff like this, especially I'm a bit of a, I don't really know that much to do with kind of skincare and stuff to begin with. So they've got the really cool Build My Regime kind of option on this website, which I just find I love. I think it's cool. But the form, it looks cool, and I think it's got a really good purpose. So as you're kind of going through filling your name, it takes you to the next question. It says how long it will take, which I think is perfect. It will take approximately 4 minutes. If I was going to test anything, it would be potentially testing having all these questions on one page rather than kind of switching and only showing one at a time. So whether it's, all visible at once, or if the questions are dependent on the previous answers, just revealing them once the previous one's been answered. But I think it can be a bit janky going from one question to the next question and then having to navigate backwards to change your answer. So yeah, I think that would be my one area to test.
It's reassuring that there's an option for people who don't know anything about skincare, because I would definitely put myself into that category of not knowing enough. So I think, this is quite cool that they've given you the option to explain what those symptoms are in terms of how you should detect or self-diagnose what your skincare problems might be. That's quite cool. I think, Josh, you had an idea on what you would test for.
Yeah, it was around that, actually. I think it was similarly, I wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about and what some of the terminology means, but I might know enough to be like, right, I've got a certain issue. So if I in that example might go on the first answer, which is that one there. But then when I got to this point, I kind of might know, I've got dullness in my skin, but I don't know what signs of congestion actually means, and that might be something that's applicable to me. So rather than the user having to go back out of this to go into the option below, which kind of would add quite a lot of, you put a lot on the user to go and do that, just having some kind of info or tooltips or something here to be like, this is our definition of signs of congestion. This is our definition of irregularities.
That's a great idea. So my idea was born out of the fact that I actually didn't see this little instruction here of select up to 3. And when I went to pick showing my age, I said general signs of aging. That was my one. And I expected it to automatically move to the next answer, but it didn't. And then Amy helpfully corrected me. That's because you have to select 3, but I didn't realize that. So I thought that the form was just broken, but it wasn't. So I would probably either make this a bit more obvious, or if I was, I would probably give some kind of helpful instruction to select 2 more, or potentially, give me a, just essentially highlight that a bit more up there, or make the next CTA or OK CTA probably sticky, so that it was obvious that there was another action that I needed to take. But yeah, this is kind of a really cool way of people navigating what is sometimes a fairly complex customer journey, especially when there is a lot of money to be spent on skincare, and there are a lot of people who don't know very much, like me. So this is very helpful. I like it a lot. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I love these sorts of things on e-com websites. You see it across loads of coffee brands do it as well, don't they? With I think it's really cool.
Nice. Okay. Well, to draw it straight back to the boring world of financial services again, we're going to go straight into mortgage applications. So again, yeah, exactly. Sexy stuff. I think this is again, similar to the car insurance, potentially not everyone's idea of a fun Friday night, but also quite necessary. So something that at some point in your life you're probably going to do is apply for a mortgage, and a lot of people have concerns about it. I think it is complicated. It is generally quite mind-numbing, and it's also, there are a lot of hoops to jump through. So L&C have done a job and invested a lot of time in trying to make this process as easy as possible. And there is their approach to this is by making the form almost like a conversational call and response progressive disclosure form, where when you click a response, it reveals the next one. So you kind of almost, you get drawn into it by just thinking, oh, it's just one question. Oh, there's another question. There's more questions. My concern chiefly when you first join, similar to what we were saying earlier, actually, I guess, similar to your point, Josh, about the Tesco form, is that it doesn't say how much time I should expect this form to take. And that might be because they don't know. It could take 5 minutes, it could take 20 minutes, depending on your situation. But I think they must have a good idea from just looking at analytics what the average time is. So I think, especially when people sit down, for example, on a Sunday afternoon or something, and think, okay, I need to do this. How much time is it going to take? I've got 20 minutes now before I have to go out and run an errand. Do I have enough time? If it gave me just an approximate guideline here at the top, it would be useful for me, because then I know I can dedicate 20 minutes, half an hour, however much time to getting it done. And I don't have to be anxious about, losing my progress or getting caught out. So that would probably be my test.
No, I agree. And I think, yes, similarly to the point again with the car insurance, it's, you don't want to get kind of halfway through and realize you don't have all the information. So even at this stage here, I like the kind of, they've got their USPs at the top, which is great, but and it kind of tells you a little bit more about the form. But if they could kind of potentially give some kind of indicators about what personal information you'd need ready before starting the form, that could, save a lot of it, because you don't want to get halfway through and realize that you need something that's kind of stuck in the loft in a file somewhere.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, but, you're going to need your last 3 months pay slips and your national insurance number, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I like that. I completely agree on the time thing as well. I think even if it was like quite a broad estimate, even if it was like you said, it might take some people 10 minutes, it might take some people half an hour, but even if you gave people that kind of window, at least they would know they're roughly on the right track. Do you know what I mean? In terms of what they expect to do. In terms of what I would test on this, I think mine would come in the kind of next section once you filled out this first bit. So once you've kind of gone through this initial, like you said, conversational piece, it probably goes into a bit more of a traditional form.
It does, yeah.
My suggestion here would be a little bit like they've actually done in the top section, funny enough, where they've got this name section now. We've got first name, middle name, and surname condensed into one box. I think there's other examples of where they could do that throughout the rest of the form. Just where at the moment it's broken down into a lot of individual questions, which even just space-wise takes up quite a lot, and it makes that quite a long scroll.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably an argument to test just having sections on here rather than loads of individually headed questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like, what's your contact details, and then that's just email address,
phone number. Exactly.
Yeah. The chat layout is interesting, but it's it could be a little bit kind of disruptive, in particular in kind of longer instances of the form as well. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's just asking the users to do a little bit more than they probably need to. Like, albeit that would be it's small margins, but it is still, you could probably, I'd be interested in testing that just to see.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. But so I think that's it for all of our experiment ideas for L&C, and actually I think for all of them, that's it. We've covered a lot in the last 15 minutes. So if you have any websites you want us to look at, any particular pages or steps in the journey you want us to take a look at, please mention in the comments and let us know. Also, just general feedback if you like the video, if you've got any ideas for what we should look at next. So thank you very much for joining us on another episode of CROs React. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you soon.